Being an M-Power specialist and me personally being a BMW M fanboy, there aren't many M-Power cars that we haven't owned, especially from the recent era. Despite being around the 1M for so many years, that one has eluded us. But now we have fixed that and we finally have a 1M. But this isn't a normal 1M, this has the S65 from the E9x M3 and it's mated to a DCT gearbox. So let's talk a little bit more about this car. Most of you, especially from the UK, will recognize this car because it's very famous. It has a name, it's called Bruce. And before we get started, let's talk about the fact that this is not a real 1M. It is actually a 120D that was fully converted into a 1M using OEM parts by Ash at Quarry Motors, and he did an absolutely fantastic job. The car was commissioned by one of our good customers called Nina, and then I was in a position to be able to take it off her hands when she was ready to sell it. Now, the story about this car is that about 10 years ago, Nina came in for some work and I got to drive it. And this is the car that made me not want to buy a 1M, and I'll explain why. I'd driven 1Ms because we've been around them for so long. We developed parts for them right from the get-go, and we actually did a lot of our stage 3 conversions on them. When I drove this car with this engine and that gearbox, I was like, this is the way this car should have come. So from that point onwards, I always knew I would end up building one of these. And we got to the stage of collecting all of the parts, the OEM body parts and engine, everything I needed to do the conversion. But truth be told, you guys keep us so busy, we just never found the time to build it. And when Nina approached me a few months ago to buy this car, I could not say no. I knew the car, I love the way it drives, and it saved us a lot of time. So instead of going through the process of building it, which I would have enjoyed, I get to enjoy the car as it is, but with a few of our own touches, which I will explain a bit later on. So let's take a quick look around the car before we go and take it for a drive. Now, the party piece of this car is obviously the engine. So it has the S65 from the E9x M3 mated to the DCT gearbox. And I talked about making some changes to the car. The first thing we did was naturally put a full Venturi plenum intake and air lid system on the car, just so we can release some of that noise. I can't own an S65 car and not have this plenum on it. The car is finished in Java green. It also has contrast stitching inside the car with Alcantara. So the car was finished in a very beautiful way. All of the body panels are original OEM 1M, including the bumpers, the fenders, the rear arches and the rear bumper. Currently the car has a custom mid-pipe mated to a Miltech rear exhaust, which does sound fantastic, but I'll probably will switch that up more to my liking as the project progresses. As I said, I'm not going to make too many changes to the car, and I will discuss them with you when I'm actually driving. Apart from that, the car has a Nitron suspension, which I think is more suited to the track. And in keeping with the factory theme, it also has the original wheels from the E9x M3 competition. But I probably will switch at least the color out on those. I'm thinking either black or silver. We'll see how it goes. But what made me fall in love with this car was the way it drove. So let's get in the car so I can share my thoughts with you. The interior of this car has been finished off very nicely, so it mimics the 1M on the dome of the Speedo, but instead of orange stitching, it has Java green. Steering wheel again, Alcantara, green stripe, and these front seats are actually from an E9x M3, and they have an Alcantara stripe going down them, and again with Java green contrast stitching, and the rear is finished much in the same way. So the interior is just as nice as the exterior, and for me, styling wise, the 1M doesn't need a huge amount. This car did actually have a diffuser on it, which I took off because I just don't think it's required. But the main thing with this car is the way it drives. Now, when I first drove this car, it was on standard EDC, and I have to say I actually prefer that over the Nitrons that are on this at the moment. I'm sure these are great on the track, but for road, they're just way too stiff. Doesn't mean it's not fun, but yeah, just this road is particularly bumpy and it's just confused about what it's doing on smoother roads. It's absolutely fine. But the E92 M3 powertrain in this smaller package just makes it more fun. I think it's to do with the shorter wheelbase. There is going to be slightly less weight in this car. I'm not exactly sure how much it is. It's probably around 100 kgs. That's enough to make it that little bit more sprightly. Yeah, this engine with this gearbox in this car is just so good. And with the added E-Venturi plenum, I was worried the exhaust would drown it out, but it absolutely doesn't. And the exhaust tone is very unique. It doesn't sound like anything else I've heard, and that's because the custom mid-pipe is a single pipe which then splits into two. So as I said, there are some changes I want to make. The first thing was we put E-Venturi plenum on there and we took the rear diffuser off. Suspension's moved on quite a lot from when this car has been built, so we are going to fit a set of our Evolve X Bilstein EDC dampers along with the MSS springs, and that's because on the red E92 M3 we have that combination just works amazingly well. And if you followed the channel, you would have seen the suspension refresh we did on the Japan red car, and I want to carry out the same. So if any of our friends at FCP Euro are watching this, keep an eye on your inbox, because I think I want to be involved with you guys again, getting this suspension up to the same level that the Japan red one is. Other changes I want to make, definitely a carbon roof from our friends at Alpha N, just to make it a more complete comparison to the E92 M3, and possibly, if I can, change the hood to one that doesn't have the hood pins on there, but we'll see how that goes. That's a small minor point. So I'm just reminded why I fell in love with this car when I drove it almost a decade ago now. It's just so much fun. I'm a massive E92 M3 fan, and just having it in this smaller package is just awesome. See, the top mounts are also making a bit of noise, which I don't want. My cars always have to be more road biased than track, but I like the fact that I can do road trips in them to the Alps in comfort, and then if I do need to go on track, they give me enough to be able to cope with that also. We just get spoiled when we do suspension refreshes on cars. People don't realize, like, even after 50 or 60,000 miles, how much the bushes and arms wear out, and every car is now the benchmark. So when I drive an E92 M3, I'm always comparing it to our Japan red one, but we will fix that very soon. But in terms of driving the car around normally, you can stick it in D and just cruise in it. Everything works as it should do. All the buttons work, the M button works, EDC, the power, the DCT. So the integration of the ECUs and all the modules is just flawless. And you have to remember, this car was initially built 10 years ago, so just shows you what a great job they did. But you know, we can't leave anything alone, and I have to put my stamp on it. So keep watching and you will see what we come up with. I get to own this car 9 years after the first time I drove it, but the question is it as good as I remember? Yes and no. It's a hoot to drive, but I think the only reason that I say that is because I know how good it can be. We moved the platform on so much with our red E92 M3. I know if we apply all the changes we've done to that onto this in terms of the suspension, this is going to be even better. Now, we've shared some of the plans we've got for this car, but there's a couple I haven't shared with you, and they're going to be big ones. So if you're interested, stay tuned to the channel, subscribe, and watch out for this project. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you liked the video, please remember to smash that like button, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. If you want to join the conversation, please drop a comment below and we'll try our best to respond to you. If you want to watch more of this project, you can do so over here. If you want to watch what YouTube thinks you might like from our other content, you can do so over here.